The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
All right, we got it. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize. I go back here. Apparently my audio isn't working, but we've got that resolved now. So let's try this again. Okay. Welcome everybody to the Creo Parametric Model-Based Definition discussion here. Boundary Systems weekly webinar series. And the objective here, let's start this over. We're going to do an introduction and an overview of Creo Parametric MBD functionality. And the agenda will be based around an introduction around boundary systems and a couple slides here on MBD, model-based definition, with a product overview. And then we'll jump into the technical demonstration portion. My name is Aaron Spicer, Boundary Systems Technical Specialist. I have 20 plus years of experience with the PTC products, everything from medical devices to consumer electronics, consumer products, and manufacturing as well. So my specialties include training, consulting, and implementation. A little about Boundary Systems. We're a technology leader. Partners include PTC, Solid Thinking, eTraj, ZWCAD, and other technology companies. We're a number 16 fastest growing private company in Greater Cleveland, and our capabilities include product lifecycle management, data management, CAD design and consulting, simulation, and product development. Over on the right-hand side here, you can see a list of our existing customers. And if you're on this call today and we don't see your name over there, we definitely want to re-engage with you and seeing how we can benefit your team and help you guys utilize your PTC products and any other third-party application you may be looking to use, how we can get those involved with you and how we can make you part of our ever-growing list of customers here. One more slide on Boundary Systems here. Another 2 industry awards here, an E5000 and a Weatherhead 100 company. And our major accreditations, we are certified Windchill implementers, PTC preferred service provider, and a PTC certified training partner as well. And again, some of the solutions here that we offer, the suite of software from PTC. We also offer Solid Thinking, eTraj, Mentor Graphics, Flow EFD, Moldex 3D if you're doing any mold simulation or flow simulation for plastic products, and then ZWCAD for your 2D capability needs. Technical support questions, we want to make sure that you're working or engaged with our support team here, so you can reach us at support@boundarysys.com. And if you have any sales questions, you can email the sales team at sales@foundersys.com. Okay, so the heart of the topic today, we're going to be talking about model-based definition. So model-based definition, we're going to start off here, a set of business processes supported by technology to enable more efficient product development. So the overall view of this was, it's a single master digital data set that provides a complete product definition, flows seamlessly through the product development process, managed in an enterprise PLM, so a Windchill style environment, or whatever your PLM system of choice may be. The consumers access relevant information through the PLM, CAD visualization, and publications that we put out to them, 3D PDFs or whatever file format that we're going to be submitting to our customers now, or our end suppliers, whoever is going to be receiving these models. So no longer will we be sending the PDF drawings or anything like that, but it'll be a model that represents all of the digital data that we'll want to participate in, and have our suppliers participating in as well. So fully annotated 3D digital models, it becomes a master portal for accessing critical geometric and manufacturing process information, so our PMIs. What is MBD? So the journey here, common terminology for logical progression from fully drawing-based to fully model-based. So the old style used to be a drawing-centric format. You had your 2D master drawing. 3D model is not verified or configuration controlled. Then you move to a model-centric, which was a 2D master drawing with an associative 3D model. So if you're in the Creo environments, basically what you're working to now, you have your model file being read, or your drawing file is reading your model file in order to maintain that data, keep the associativity between the two. And then you follow that up by the model-based definition. You're using the 3D master CAD model with 3D annotations to do all of the annotations and callouts for dimensions, GD&T, manufacturing, all of that information is stored internally to the part file. And that's basically how Creo has now been optimized and how it's going to be working with that. We're going to jump into the software and take a look at that. The final stage of that is what we call a model-based enterprise. So you've got your 3D master CAD model with your 3D annotations, and it's fully leveraged by the enterprise. Everybody within your streamlined system here can take advantage of that CAD model, pull it up for the latest and greatest information, everything from product design, marketing, and sales, all the way through the manufacturing of that product as well. What processes are impacted by MBD? So your CAD data authoring, most people, when they sit and take a look at this MBD process from an engineer or designer standpoint, seems like there's adding more work onto our plates here as we're building through this. And actually what's happening here is we're eliminating a lot of the work that's being involved. We're creating all this data on the fly now. So it's just utilizing the data that we have here and putting it in an organized set. And if we do that on the model-based side of it, if we are still required or we're still utilizing our 2D drawings, or we're going that route, all of the work that we put in on our annotation sides can be adapted and utilized on our drawing side as well. So it may seem like extra work, but it's going to be the same amount of work. And it's just, instead of going in and recreating all the drawing views, we're just going to utilize, take advantage of those views, the combined view states, if you will, that we'll create in our MBD process here, and just show them on the detailed drawing views. So we have the CAD data authoring for creation of the 3D CAD models, annotation of the 3D CAD models, and creation of the 2D drawings. Model checking, so your best modeling practices, design checking, manufacturability checking, and model comparison. Analysis and testing, leverage design models in your analysis, simulation data management. Your manufacturing planning group, taking an advantage and looking at your E-bombs, your M-bombs, key and critical characteristics and traceability of your product, and then the NC programming from those part files as well. Inspection and quality, they're going to come back, take a look at our part file, and make sure it matches up for metrology and any digital inspection or validation that they're going to participate in on their end. Data exchange and archiving, so multi-CAD interoperability and long-term archiving of the CAD data as well. Requirements management, requirements traceability, requirements fulfillment, linkage to key critical characteristics, and then followed up at the end here by technical documentation. So your model-based tech pubs, taking advantage of all of that information now. So you can see we're taking all of this now, and with all the paperwork and all of the paper trail that we would typically have in this process, we can condense this down utilizing our PLM systems to just have the CAD model, and then attaching our documentation for traceability for requirements, or any of the requirements fulfillment. We can attach all those supplier quotes, material specs on the parts. All can be enhanced and attached to our CAD data within our PLM environment now, along with, again, that CAD data and maintaining most of that information. So let's take a look on the Creo side and see how Creo is taking advantage of this. So let's go ahead and collapse this here. And before I start into it, let me start off with a quick poll here. I'm going to give you guys a few seconds to fill out a poll here. And I want to ask, does your company have an initiative around MBD currently? So go ahead and launch that. And I put the poll out there for you. So we got yes, no, or you're not sure. Go ahead and a few of you go answer that for me real quick. Okay. Almost done here. Okay. Now I've got a good portion of you that have already answered that question. The next question that I've got here, let's close this one. The next one. Now you can see right now we've got about 58% of you currently have some form of an initiative, 25% no, and 17% are not sure. Let's take a look at, are your initiatives based around your customer or an internal desire? So is your customer driving your MBD initiative now, or is this going to be an internal discussion that you're having? Let's go ahead and launch that question for you. Give you a few seconds to answer it. All right, great. So a good portion of you, this is an internal discussion that you're having there. So that's fantastic. Let's go ahead and leave that up there for one more second. And we'll go ahead and close that poll. And let's see the results here. So 5% are customer driven, 64% are internal, and then 32% of it doesn't apply at this time. All right. So let's jump into Creo here. And make sure we've got our view. And I'm going to share my screen here, screen one. All right. So we've got Creo up on the screen here. So let's jump in and take a quick look at the first stage that we're going to start off with. One of the improvements on Creo 4 was this ability with our style managers here. So I'm going to start off with the appearance states and the processes we're going to change here. So, okay, so one of the main things, or the main keys here of doing the model-based definition is you have total control over your annotations and your 3D modeling nodes right within the interface here for Creo. So if you look up at the top here in our ribbon, you'll notice that we have the Annotate tab here. Most of the time, most of us aren't utilizing this. This is now the time that we would be taking advantage of this. And the process that I've gotten myself into over the past 2 years of discovering the MBD process and how I can share this with some of my customers and our end customers here is to just have this visualization in the 3D model and having all of my data now readily available. So just like we would in a detailed drawing, what we can do is if you look across the bottom here, you see this default all tab that we currently have. What we can do is we can build several tabs just like we would have on our detailed drawings in order to maintain and show what it is specifically that we're looking for and call out that information. Now there's specific guides that are available to us now. There's a ASME standard Y1441 is based around model-based definition, and then all of the requirements, mil-spec standards around those as well are readily available, and you can get those typically out on the web. You can gain access to those. But Creo is based around that, and they give you the ability to build out those different MBD styles. And again, depending on what level of MBD process or how far into this process you're going to be implementing this, will help you set the stage for how you're going to build these default views and everything else. So it's not a out of the box, this is how it's going to work, and everybody follows this process. This is determined internally on how you're going to use MBD, and then set up and configure MBD to work in your environment, and have Creo then support that for you. So one of the things that we can take advantage of here, so you look at the top, we've got our view manager. I'll go ahead and activate my view manager. And you'll notice here we have our simplified rep sections, layers, appearance, and orientation. And then we have the all tab. The Alt tab is where we're going to build out all the different layering that we're going to want to show and require on this one. So one of the biggest things that was missing in the last build here was our ability to color our model files and update these so that we could then utilize these in the drawings. As I mentioned, or as part of my talk track at the beginning here was, if we do this work and most of the implementation of MBD is going to be from a part level side of it, but however, we still have to support some sort of a documentation. We have the ability inside of Creo detailed drawing mode where, and most of us, we've seen this for a long time now, and it's kind of been ingrained into our DNA. We just kind of walk right by it. We're prompted for our first general view when we go to place that general view into our drawing mode. We see this prompt come up on the screen and it tells us, hey, do you want to place combined view? For the most part, most of us have been hitting no, and then we hit that checkbox next to it to, don't prompt us again for that. Well, this is where this would actually come into effect and where I can actually place these views. One little key note here I want to make you aware of. If you're building out your general views and you do select that no option there, you don't have an option to go back. If you go and you create a combination state view, you have to start the drawing all over. So that's one of the areas that I found is a little weak on how it handles those issues with those files. But once I set that to no, I don't have the ability to switch back and take a look and modify any of those combined view states. So what I suggest most people go into is you set that for a default all stage. And if you use the default all settings, that allows you to go ahead and come back at any time. If I redefine it, go back and change it up again, I can go back and change that up and have that viewable, then readily available. I can change it on my drawing. So let's take a quick look here. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create a new appearance here. And this is one of them that was lacking, was the ability to show our appearances and have those show up properly. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to define an appearance here. And notice we got our default settings here for default appearance. I'm going to go ahead and create a new one. Let's call this MBD. And let's go to our View tab. And I'm going to go to my appearances here. And then appearances, I'm going to select on this PTC glass. So that should be here. Let's go ahead and select that. And I'm going to select the node at the top here to select everything. So I have my part node. And you can see here, take it off the shading with edges, just go to shading. And I have my shading view here. Not really a good view here, but we're going to turn the transparency on because we're going to set some other colors here as well. So now let's internalize the coloring here, and we want to call out some internal elements. So the next thing that we're going to do is I'm going to assign another color here, and I'm going to select on this green. I'm going to pick this surface here, and I'm going to pick up a couple other. Let's try that again. No. All right, let's try that again. Oh, come on here. All right, so I assigned my colors here, and you can see now, as I'm adding in these colors here, those are all being stored in my MBD. So as I build this out, I can go to my master appearance here, go back to my default settings, and then I can customize these views. So if I want to do an internal discussion, show the internal components on the inside of this, I've got these now shaded out here, and the colors are set accordingly for it. All right, so then I have these readily available, and I can set up my view orientation here. I'll set a view here, and maybe let's throw in a cross section here as well. So turn on my datum planes. Create a new cross section here. Let's call this one A. Set my datum plane there. Turn that on there. So I've got cross section A. Turn my datum plane displays off here. And I've also set my appearance here for MBD. I'll go over here to all and create a new one. Let's call it combination one. And I'm going to use the reference the originals here. Now what I need to do is I need to define what combination 1 is. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to redefine it. And this gives me the ability to go in and start defining how these combination states are going to work. So the combination states allow me to throw in the following. My orientations, you can see here. My simplified rep, if I have one available to me. Any cross sections. My appearances that I want to set. Any layer states. Now keep in mind, please, that layers and layer states are two separate items here. Layer states allows me to override and control any status of viewables inside of that file, overriding any of the layers that I may have turned on or off. So we'll want to be aware of that as we're setting up those layer states. And then visibilities here. Do I want to show annotations? And then any supplemental geometry that I may want to display along the way as well. So we're going to go ahead and leave the annotations checked here. For standard orientation, I'm going to just take this, this default orientation of where I'm at right now. Master rep for it. Cross section we'll just leave as A here. And my appearance I have set as my MBD. And no layer state for this. So let's select OK. Get my view orientation. And now if I select between default all, which is blank, and my combination 1 state here, you can see I have my model. And the view is broken up how I want to reference that and take a look at that part file. All right, so you can go in, you can add the documentation or any of your dimensioning schemes, anything you want in this instance here. So go to annotate. I'm going to show a model annotation here. All right, let me turn off an option here. There we go. So we can show our dimension schemes in here. Go in here, I'm going to use the show command. And turn on my layer tree here. All right. So that's the first step. So you can utilize this one, and as I was mentioning here, you've got a lot of different options that you can set. So your view orientations, your appearances, layers, sections, and simplified reps. Now the thing to keep in mind is once we publish these or we have these available to us now, whenever I'm in these different displayed views, close this out here, they'll display along the bottom here. All right, but I can also go over here. I'm going to go ahead and select back to my model tab. Currently, you don't have those displaying, and it's only that they're available only in the annotation portion here. But a little trick here, we can go to the model. I'm going to go over here to my view tab, and I'm going to go to my manage the views, view manager, and I'm going to reopen it, just opening it from another window here. I wanted you to see this in here. And now under the All tab, notice at the bottom here, I have display combined views. So if I'm going to be working in these and I want to swap between them throughout the day, I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to check that and hit the close button. Now what happens, if I come over to the model tab, I still have the ability to swap in and out of these different views and the viewables that I may have here. All right. So the same thing here. I'm going to go ahead and close this window. And I'm going to open up an assembly. And you can see my views have come over here onto the other part file. And they transferred over into this one. Let's go up to the top here in my appearances. And I'm going to clear the appearances for all. I just set it back to a default state here. And let's create a quick one here inside of our appearance manager. So I'm going to go up to the appearances here. And let's start off by going into the appearance tab again. We're going to create a new one. Let's call this one render. And let's start off by assigning some colors here. I'm going to go to this metallic gold coloring here. And I'm going to select the body and the cover. So select the body and the cover using my control key to gather those, middle mouse button to set my color on them. And now let's change this internal one here for the appearances. I'm going to use this green. And we want to change this one here. We're going to do the plate. And we're going to also do the shaft. Set those to the green color here. One more here. Let's do the appearance one more time. And let's select on the plastic red. Make sure we got that one selected here. And I'm going to select the arm part and set those up there. Okay, now in the model tree, we're going to type in the following. We're going to look for these bolts. There's several bolts in it, so let's type in bolt, hit enter, and you can see we get the list here. We have a pattern of 3 bolts here, and we have another 2 that are out here as well. So once I have those selected, let's select on add here. And now let's add a color that we want to use, and I want to use the PTC steel brush. Make sure I got that here. Select that. Let me get rid of this one. Go back into my render here. Select the 5 selected again, and then select the steel brush. Come on. Try that again, Aaron. Render. Let's go with the appearance here. All right, now we've got the color there. All right, and we still want to keep creating new ones here. Go back into my render one. All right, so now I have that set up, and we're going to go and make sure that we've got another copy here as well. So I'm going to modify one more time. I'm going to go to the render here, and I'm going to use this one as the baseline for my next one. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy it, give it a new name here, and call it render 2. And let's activate render 2. So in render 2 here, I'm going to expand my appearances, and I want to select the PTC painted green again here. And now I'm going to change the cover and the body part. So I'm going to go ahead and change those as well. Give those the same green color here. And let's just double click between the render and the render 2 here. Now again, depending on what your application is, I know this is very generalized in how I'm displaying this to you, but there might be a specific application where we're going to use these colors to kind of call out the schemes of how things are going to be, you know, maybe showing surfaces that are going to touch on onto one another during an assembly process, or areas we want to mask off for certain components, or things that we want to highlight and make sure that we're discussing during our design reviews with our customers or internally with our own team, making sure that we utilize this portion of the software to help expand those notions of what it is that we're trying to relay to them or convey to them, and look for their input as we go through this. So the next thing we want to do here, notice that you can use the existing appearance state as the basis for a new one, as we did in that state there. So we copied that over, brought it over here, and now we have between the two modes, and then going back to our master with nothing set to it at all. All right, so that's a quick overview. That's just the color appearances. Again, in Creo 4, the latest upgrade build here, what they've done is they've modified this appearance setting so that when we do add these, and then we do select and we create an all state here, we combine these all states. When we go to our drawing modes, we can now display these properly, and they show up on the detailed drawings. Okay, so let me go ahead and take this to the next one here. Let's close our window, and let's select a new working directory. One of the other nice additions here in MVD that I want to highlight for you guys, let's take a look at this camera bracket. I'm going to open this up. You know what, I want to actually open the other one first, gripper here. And as I mentioned, I already turned on the viewables down here. So when I open up this part file, you can see I have several different viewables that are already defined. So this gives you another example of how MVD can work. So we've got 3 different tabs that are set up. Now this isn't very specific. It's not set up to follow any of the requirements properly. It's just showing you the techniques of what we're doing here. And what we've done is we've set up 3 different MVD states. And what it does is it changes my view orientation. It highlights the dimensioning schemes that are on the drawing for me that I want represented in that view orientation, and any of my tolerances that I may have, any text with my notes. You can see this one here. We've got some dimensions and everything else. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add some items into this. So I'm going to start off here. I've got my MVD 01 view that I've now set. And I'm going to go over here to my Annotate tab. All right, so the first thing I want to highlight here, one of the major changes that we saw on the Creo 4 portion here is our abilities to modify our dimensions. So when we select dimensions now, in the past what we would do is if I wanted to change the values here for number of decimal places at the end here, so instead of 2 places, I want to go 3 or 4 places, I'd use my control key to gather up the dimensions, right click, go to properties, have the dashboard there, set my dimensions, or even use the tools for switching dimensions and then modifying their values for how many decimal places I wanted to. Now in 4, what I can do is as soon as I select a dimension, I get a new dashboard tab that changes up at the top here. And now instead of the right-click properties dialog box, all of that information is now across the top here. So here's my information for the value for my dimension. It's a D109. There's the value that it's set at, 3.2. So it's a driver dimension. I can modify that value and it'll update the geometry for me. Number of decimal places here. Tolerancing, if I had that set up, I could switch and modify that. I have my display functions here. So if I'm flipping my arrows or anything else, those are there. Dimension text. This is nice. So we have all the ability to change in our text, and we have the symbols library readily available right inside of the interface here. Dimension formats, dual dimensioning if you have any options that you want to change there. And then your tolerance mode. When we turn tolerancing on here, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to turn on my tolerance displays inside my configuration. And I'm going to add tile display, select yes, select OK here. And then I'm going to go ahead and change back my entity display here and show my dimension tolerance, make sure that was set. And now we should be set there. Okay, so as I did that now you can see I have my dimensions show up here. So if I select on a dimension and it has its tolerance values, you see now I have my tolerancing information all up in the dashboard here. I can change the values only. I can change their values right here. I can change which mode of tolerance that I'm in. So I can modify that as well. And then control the number of decimal places, same as the dimension, or change those if I want those to display differently there. All right, so the other thing that we do, or we're going to demonstrate for you here, is the ability to modify and create our geometric tolerancing on our parts as well. So now the interface has changed here. No longer do we get that dialog box that pops up for the GD&T. What we get is when we start off this process, and as I'm going to demonstrate for you here, I'm going to select geometric tolerancing, and what you notice is immediately it pops up and it's showing me the display here of what my GD&T is. I'm going to change the view here so I've got my right view. And what I did here was I basically set the paper orientation. So I selected bottom view here. So I'm looking at the bottom view and my text now shows in the proper orientation for where I want that displayed. So I get a view orientation here. I get my control frame to start the display here. And I'm going to select on the surface here to begin with. So I'm going to zoom in, make sure I'm just selecting the surface, left mouse button, and then I'm going to use my middle mouse button to set it. Once I have the middle mouse button set and I just select it the one time, it still leaves the control frame highlighted. And now I can go to the dashboard, and you'll notice across the dashboard, I have geometric tolerancing now available to me across the top here. So I have my surface here, and let's change the geometric tolerance or the characteristics. So we're going to hit the pull down here, and let's go ahead and let's just highlight this one, set it to perpendicularity. Now let's change it to flatness. So we'll set it to flatness there. We have that set. Let's change the value there to 5 thousandths for the flatness. And let's give it a reference here. Let's call it A. So I have A defined. Now you'll notice something here. It's telling me that I don't have A already defined on the whole here. So I'll need to go ahead and modify and set what A is going to be. So I can go ahead and I can select a reference by selecting it there. And again, I keyed in that value. That was a manual process. So let's go ahead and let's create a datum feature first. So I'll create the datum feature here. And let's go ahead and put it on the bottom surface as well. You know what, I'm going to actually go ahead and put the datum feature right into my GD&T here. And you can see, it was easy enough. I just dropped that. No longer do we have to use that menu manager. Do we have to go in and restructure that way that sets up and how we modify or attach all that geometry right there. We can simply select, grab the datum feature symbol or our datum targets and drag them right to where we want their information to be embedded or stored and put them right into their locations here. So the next one here, let me pull this up real quick. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to show annotations here for my hole. I have my hole diameter there. Now this one here, I need to pull up. Now my paper orientation for this one is set up. And again, it was using that bottom view, so I need to go back to my annotate tab here. Just making sure that I've got the right one here. Let's use the front one. Now I want to add my GD&T into this one as well. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select on my GD&T. Let me get my annotation proper here. Let's edit this one here. What I'm doing is I'm just changing the view orientations, making sure I've got these right. Let's flip the text orientation. Let's flip it. And I just want to select that. I just getting the orientation, I got the text right here, and I wanted to modify that. So what I did was I selected that dimension and it dropped it right into the dimension here. So I'm going to go ahead and go back up to my dashboard now, and I need to change my tolerances. Again, what it's using, it's utilizing the last tolerances that you had set proper or previously. So we had perpendicularity is what we had set up for originally here, or flatness, excuse me. So let's set this one down to perpendicularity. We have that in there. We can identify that. And we want to have that flat to A, or we want it perpendicular to A here. So let's select this. And we're going to go ahead and select the datum tag A. And you see it builds that out, and I have that set in here and in place. All right, so again, just a quick overview on how the technique works and how you utilize this. But as you can see, we're taking all of our dimensioning schemes and we're mapping all these out. So if we wanted to show them in another view orientation here, or we wanted to call out dimensioning schemes a little bit differently, we just switch to the tab that we're looking for here. Maybe on this one here, instead of calling this one out as a regular dimension, let's call this one out as a reference. And now just like that, I've got my text set up here and it's displaying properly here. I'm going to do one more here while I'm on this screen. Let me go ahead and I'm going to show another model annotation. You got the 0.2 diameter here. Pull this off to the side a little bit. Now, another nice thing that I can do here, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to drop another GD&T on this one. I'm going to drop it right on the dimension there. Now I got it displaying properly. Now what I want to do is I've got the perpendicularity set up here. So the other thing that we have now is this ability for semantic references and how we have the GD&T set up on our parts. So we've got the perpendicularity, and as you can see, there's 4 holes that are being called out. So I'm going to call this over here. I'm going to go and I'm going to select on this, and I'm going to go up to my additional text here, and I'm just going to put 4 places. And it fills under the bottom here. Well, with the semantic technique, what I can do is I'm going to select the dimension. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to select on references. Now I'm going to gather the other holes. Select OK here. So now, when I select on a dimension, what it does is it pops back up on the screen. I have my 0.2 value there, but the semantic reference allows me to see, okay, there's 4 places. Where are the 4 places? The other 4 locations now identify up on that screen for me, and it's being relayed to me in this information. So with the capability of sending these out and utilizing our Creo view, we can utilize the Creo view, and when we select on those dimensions or those holes, all 4 holes would highlight for us and show that dimensioning scheme, along with any of the GD&T for it. And again, with the support for AP242, that is a step format that now supports annotated models and their abilities to gather that information and share that PMI information with your manufacturers or with the end customer. We can then use those step files to relay the information the same exact way. So that's a quick overview on the techniques and utilizing some of the combination states and how we use it from a modeling side here. Now we haven't gone into showing any of the techniques on the drawing side of that. Maybe we'll expand that and put on another portion for another webinar here. But I'm going to open it up here and see, are there any questions from anybody right now on this technology, or anything I can help answer at this time regarding this the model-based definition and how we're utilizing it in Creo 4? Go ahead and open up the questions, and you should be able to go ahead and ask any questions you want to on the application here for the webinar. I've also attached a handout here for our PTC Creo View design check. This is another portion of the software that's available on the Creo View side that allows people to mark up and take advantage of this MBD looking at these different combined states and how we're publishing them out, and being able to utilize those outside of engineering and work those into other groups and have them work with us in that technology as well. So let's see here. I've got a question that's popped up here. Let me take a quick look at it. Oh, a few of them, man. Well, let's pop these up here and see if we can. Okay, let me scroll through some of these questions here. All right, so some of my questions here. So the first question I have here, can you show a created dimension twice in different views in the combo views? Yeah, so the technique of what you have to do is you have to take the dimension and highlight the dimension. I'm going to go back to my annotate tab here. When I have the dimension, and I've shown it one time, so what happens is if you're in a detailed drawing mode and I show this dimension using the show annotations technique, I can't show it in any other views. However, what I could do inside of this one is I can add it to a state. So once I've done the shown dimension or however I want that and I want to use it in other views, I simply come back in, I highlight the dimension, I come over to the annotate tab here, and I select add to state. Now when I do that add to state, I'm given another window here that pops up. I've got my different states. I select the state that I want to have that available to me in, and now when I go to that state, I'll have that dimension now displaying in the same orientation that I had originally there. Let me take a look at the next one here. All right. Okay, so that answers the view state question there. We can display those and show them in several. And one other thing that I want to suggest here as well. So you see that we've got these different views, right? So we have the different view orientations. What I would typically do is once I have all of these developed and ready to go, and I mentioned laying these out in detailed drawings, I'll take everything and I'll put it out to a default all, and I'll move all of my dimensions, all of my nodes, everything onto a default all state. So that way it allows me to capture and gather everything at one time. And then I can use the show all or the show annotations on my detailed drawings, and then start eliminating those different dimensions I will not need at that time. But it gives me a quick way to just kind of puke everything on the screen, get all the dimensions there. Then I can use the drawing mode because I'm using combined view states here and organize those in an easier fashion there in that manner there. So let me see if we got any other questions here. Looks like I got a question here. It just says driven. Charlie, that one's not spelled out all the way here. Okay, we got you there. And we answered that one. It says, one of the questions here, can you delete an extension line? So yes, you use the same manner. You get the same techniques here when we create those dimensions. And I may need to pull that. Nathan, I see you're the one answering that question here, so I've got your email. If I need to pull that off, I can demonstrate that for you here. But just real quickly, you should be able to just highlight a dimension. And I should have the ability with my notes here to go in and right-click. So when I right-click on the Edit Lines portion here, you should be able to go in and you can edit the definition of those dimensions. We can erase witness lines. You can insert a jog or a break. And then you can modify where the dimension origin is going to be for those dimensions in the process there. So you can see how it's kind of highlighting here and it's showing you the extension here. So I can bring this out. I can use the shift button and attach it to different walls as well. So to make sure that I'm calling these out in the right locations each time and making sure that those references are spelled out properly here. Okay. Make sure any other ones here. Combination views, dimensions there, driven. "3D symbols palette." So what we have here is we still have the old style symbols. So I don't have any symbols libraries called out here. But we typically, it's not a 3D style, it's more of the your from palette and your defined palette. So if you have any of your symbols that you use in 2D mode, you're then going to use those the same way, but in the 3D mode. And again, making sure that you have your annotation planes spelled out properly here first before you place those in there, making sure they're showing on the right surfaces or the right datum planes as you start to build those out. Okay, next up. So one of the questions here is asking, so how much of the dimensioning can be done while creating the model features? So the technique and the way that I've approached this, or my method for doing these now is, as I'm building out my model files, I've set up my start part files to have all the different MBD states and what I'm trying to relay as I'm building out my parts. And what I do is my exercise is after I've created my features out, I'll start going into those MBDs and using my show dimension schemes to go ahead and validate and setting up the dimensions, the GD&Ts, my tolerances, and everything else on each specific MBD tab that I may need to. So instead of going into my detailed drawing and doing all my show dimensions and everything, I'm spending all of that time in model mode under the annotate tab and spelling out all those dimensions in each one of the stages that I'm there. So once I have those defined and ready to go, I just go and I do my show view, pick the MBD state that I'm going to show the view representation for, and all of the dimensions, everything are already laid out. Their orientation is proper for me. My sections are proper. I have all that ready to go. And when I hit the combined view there, everything displays for me in the manner that I need it to. So I hope that answers that question there. So the question here we have, what type of files get sent to a supplier for them to manufacture the component? So as I mentioned, there's a couple methods. We can still submit to them the PTC Creo file if we're working in that manner. What works really well here is if you're sending this out and you need to dumb down the files, shrink wrap works really well with these. So if you need to get rid of some of your IP, your internals, you don't want people to see some of that information, we can carry all of our PMI and our annotations over in the shrink wrap functionality. We can then also save a Creo view file, allowing them to view those if they have Creo view. And again, just giving them the Creo view, the PVZ file format in order to read that and take a look at that component. And then the final one is with STEP now. So STEP has an AP242, which is a new function in here. If I go to File, I do a Save As, Save a Copy, and I go into STEP, and I go to my options here. For Application Protocol, the pull down here for it, it's going to be this AP242E1. So I set that one up here, and I can export my model, the parameters or preferences for it as is, tessellated, my assemblies, turn on my annotations here, and I can leave the rich content. So if I add HTML or if I'm adding any requirements that are going to a document somewhere, I can have that rich content still available in my step file format here. Set it up for facets, cable surfaces, and then some advanced functionality as well we can change here. So entity IDs, extended datums, export my solids and how I can set those up, and how I can set my surfaces and polylines for those as well. So that's the format that you would use to create that and export that. Okay, so that looks like I've answered most of the questions there. If I didn't, I'm going to get this spit out here, and I'll be able to respond back to anybody that may have any questions. But I want to thank you for taking the time today, and welcome you to our community here and taking a look at our webinar series. Keep an eye on your emails. We'll send out marketing reminders for upcoming webinars that we may have. And you can also check out our YouTube channel, Boundary Systems, up on YouTube. And we have all of these different webinars that we hold weekly are stored up there. So you'll be able to take a look at this again tomorrow up on our YouTube channel and review anything that you may have there. If you got any questions, I want to welcome you guys to go ahead and send an email out to support@boundarysys.com. We'd be more than happy to answer any other questions. If you'd like a further deep dive on this conversation or the topics around MBD, please let us know. We do offer a 2D MBD course that's based around building out the combined view states, not specific to the MBD process itself, but more around how Creo works in that environment to display the MBD information. So you can reach us anytime at our sales group to set up a time that you may be interested in taking that course as well. So thanks again for your time. Look forward to engaging with some of you customers as we move forward with this and get you introduced to MBD. And anything else we can do, please let us know. Have a great day, and thank you for your time.